Vigilante Winston here with the fourth episode of my Mandalorian review series. Hope you're having a good afternoon, evening, or morning, or whatever time of day it is, whenever you're watching this. We are reviewing Chapter 12, The Seige, or Season 2, Episode 4, whichever one you like. To me, this is the best episode of the season, maybe even the series. I think there are other episodes in Season 1 that I would say I like better, but this is one of the best ones. And to me, this is the episode where this series finally understands what it is. It's hit its stride to me. And what I mean by understanding what it is I've said this in pretty much every review I've done. This is never going to be The Wire in space. It's never going to be whatever you thought of Game of Thrones before it ended in space. This is never going to be, the great high-end writing, The Sopranos, whatever you think, Breaking Bad. That's not what this is ever going to be. It's not trying to be. And I think that's what the last couple episodes, that's what made them the best. When referring to episode 1 and 2, I said each one was the worst episode of the series when I saw it. Episode 2 was worse than episode 1. And I feel like it's like that for 3 and 4 as far as the season goes. Where 3 was the best episode of the season thus far, and now 4 has supplanted that. A little bit more before getting into spoilers and my score. I want to give it an 8.5, mainly because of the action. The series knows what it's not, and it knows what it is. It is a fun action sequence, and that's what it's good at. It's good at these great action sequences. I said in previous reviews, it seems like they come up with the action sequences first and then use the plot as lines to get to those action sequences. The reason this episode was so great is it just focused so heavily on the action sequences that it didn't give the plot chance to go wrong. And it didn't meander a second. Everything was action. Bang, bang, bang. Carl Weathers has shown himself to be the best director thus far. Even though I'm not sure if it's exactly the best episode of the series, I do think it is the most Mandalorian episode of the series so far. Either this episode 6. It just felt really fun. Tons of good action. Tons of good character interaction. Little bit of cliche, little bit of humor. There was some humorous interaction with Mithro, the blue guy who was, I guess that's sort of a spoiler. He was in the first scene of the first episode. He was the guy that Mando was capturing in that opening scene, and he makes a reappearance in this episode. You know what? Let me get into spoilers. I feel like I've rambled enough without spoilers. He's part of their siege because they siege this underground Imperial base, basically. That's the whole episode. And there's potentially a reveal of Snoke. It depends, because this underground base has like a different tanks and cloning, as I'll get into when I go through the story. And there may be a reveal of Snoke, so that may be a knock of the episode. But overall, it's very fun. And this is one of the first episodes or few episodes where Mando isn't made to look like a complete moron. You may be able to say that because he does trust Greef's people a little bit too much, and one of them is actually planning something on his ship, as I'll get into a little bit later again. And so maybe that. But in this episode, he wasn't coerced or shamed into doing anything. He wasn't put down. He was able to look like a kick-ass character. Everyone looked like a kick-ass character. I want to actually commend again Carl Weathers. He made sure everybody got over. Baby Yoda got over with his cuteness, and he wasn't in the way, which is how I like my Baby Yoda. I am pro Baby Yoda. This is a pro Baby Yoda channel, but he has to be used correctly. He cannot overpower these episodes, and he didn't. Had his cute scene in the classroom, and then ate his little space cookies, threw up a little bit later. It was cute. Everything about Baby Yoda was cute. Had this cute opening scene. Because I actually saw this episode twice. I tried to do this review a few days after seeing it, and I was like, I need to see it again. I'm glad I did. I liked it more the second time. And I thought everything he did was even cuter the second time. Him trying to fix the ship. Initially, I thought it was a little bit cliche and cheesy, but it was cute. Everything about the Mandalorian, everything that makes it great, was in this episode. You had cute Baby Yoda, you had Cara Dune and Grief Cargo, who should have been in the series or in this season previously. There is a subplot about Navarro, the planet. It's been improved. Cara Dune has kind of cleaned up everything. You have the kick-ass introduction where she cleans up everything. And again, as far as Cara Dune, Gina Carano, her being a MMA artist, I mean, that adds so much to these scenes. I was thinking almost in wrestling terms because she just looked so smooth. Like every motion she did, like when she's rolling people up and stuff in her fight scene, it looks smooth. It looks professional. It looks like a real fighter because she's a real fighter. And it's a shame that her politics, which really, if you go into it, have been really overblown. I probably should cover that a little bit more on the channel, but I digress. It's a shame that her politics will get her into trouble as far as getting a lot of these action roles for females that there seems to be a lot of in Hollywood nowadays, because she actually physically fits the bill in every way. And I mean, she's not a perfect actress as far as delivering her lines, but physically she is pretty good, even non-verbally. There's a scene towards the end where she's talking with a police officer, basically a New Alliance or whatever they're called, X-Wing pilot, and they're talking about her home planet Alderaan getting blown up, and she emotes pretty well. She's not great at delivering lines as well as she is emoting non-verbally, but she is a good physical actress, and it's a real shame if her politics, or the spin of her politics more accurately, will get her in trouble as far as getting roles. Because if you're going to have a lot of these action movie roles with action kick-ass chicks, she fits the bill from a skill set standpoint. I remember there was a generation when Michelle Rodriguez had a lot of these roles, or even Angelina Jolie had a little stretch of having a lot of kick-ass roles. And I feel like Gina Carano can definitely fit in where you had women in the past who had these kick-ass action roles just from a physical standpoint. So I really want to commend her on that. But again, everybody got to look good. Even Carl Weathers himself, which I think thus far he was just a guy. It was cool for him to be on the show, but it was like he wasn't adding much. But on this episode, he was just Carl Weathers. He's Apollo Creed. I forgot his character on Predator offhand, but he was Carl Weathers, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he was a dope character. He was kind of funny yelling at Mithro. I mean, it could have got overbearing for some, and I can understand that, but I liked it. I thought he was pretty funny and pretty cool. And he just brought a cool element. And as a director, there's a sense of masculinity that this episode had that the others lacked. It's really hard to describe. I almost feel like there's an 80s action element to it. And I mean, people can overblow 80s action movies because there's tons of exposition in them, but when those sequences go, they just go kind of forever. And that's what this felt like when the action started, it was like a 20-minute action sequence, and that's what made it great. It was just like one huge epic action sequence. And that's why even when I go through the story, which I'm gonna get to shortly, there's not much dialogue. A lot happens, but it's just, different sections of this siege. And there's some criticisms to potentially get into it. One thing I did differently for this episode, because I did see a lot of reviews, and I usually don't watch other people's reviews, and I saw some criticism pertaining to, well, why wasn't the base guarded? And I guess to that, I would say it should be some impact of what happened to Return of the Jedi. Like, the Empire did fall. In my head, there shouldn't be these huge bases where they have the best security system all the time. They should kind of be a little janky. I mean, they did lose. I know that the Star Wars trilogy, the Disney trilogy, has erased everything, but I mean, that's not even apocryphal. That's not. That is non-canon. That is fiction. That is made up. It's fanfic. So I don't accept Disney Star Wars trilogy. So in my head, the Empire is still on a re-come up, so they shouldn't have everything as far as security down pat. Anyways, let's get into the story, and it should go by pretty fast. I mean, this episode was about 34 minutes. Again, I said in previous episodes of this series that shorter episodes go best, and this one was no different. So they start off in the Razor Crest, where Baby Yoda is trying to help Mando fix his ship. He's inside the, he's inside the circuitry, and he has to get the wires, put the red wire where the blue wire was, the blue wire where the red wire was. He gets it mixed up, electrocutes himself. It's cute. It was annoying the first time I watched it. The second time I saw it, it was really cute. So when we last left off, our last episode, Din Djarin, or Mando, was on his way to get Baby Yoda to Ahsoka Tano. But his ship was in kind of a janky repair, because even though he's in space platinum, aka Beskar, he doesn't have much to repair his ship. So he goes to Navarro. I think this is a minor plot hole. They don't explain, hey, Navarro's closer to the planet they're trying to get to. They just say, oh, we can't get our ship right, let's go to Navarro. And it's like, what if Navarro's farther away? It doesn't make any sense. So I wish they would have just explained, oh, Navarro's close, let's just go back there. A simple line could have done it. I have no idea why they didn't add that in. Anyways, they get to Navarro, and we see Greef Karga and Cara Dune, aka Carl Weathers, and Gina Carano. And they greet them, and it's kind of a cool thing. And you see that as they go throughout the city, that the city and the planet has kind of been cleaned up. I mentioned the opening scene of Gina Carano as the marshal, basically, of this area, because she cleans up this one, they're just robbers. I don't know what they are. They're generic bad guys. They're trying to kill this squirrel-like alien. I forgot their species. I know they're super diehard Star Wars fans that know all these species. I forgot. I'll probably do an edit on that. Anyways, she kicks ass, takes names, and she gets I guess she's Robin Hood, because all of these things are stolen and she's returning them. Kind of a space Robin Hood, and she saves a little squirrel creature. It's really cool. Navarro's been cleaned up, and this is where I feel like they should have had scenes similar to the action sequence I just talked about, littered throughout the first few episodes as side plots. I'm of the opinion that the first 2 episodes especially would have been a lot better had there been side plots that maybe even led up to this episode or lead up to future episodes. And you don't have to add too much, just a few extra scenes of a plot that isn't the main plot. I've said this is not going to be The Wire in space, and I'm okay with that, but there's no need to eliminate all complexity in a simple side plot or two. And not even a ton of time on each side plot, just a few sequences throughout an episode would do this show a ton of good. I think we could have had a side plot the first few episodes of Cara Dune cleaning up this town, leading up to them finally meeting up. It would have been cool, and it would have been a way of getting Gina Carano in earlier episodes, where at this point she's only appeared in one episode, same with Carl Weathers, and they could have appeared in previous episodes with not that much effort. And I really think having no side plots, and this series really has no side plots. One main plot, every now and again you get a cutaway, but really not a ton of side plots. And I think this series really has needed it. I mean, this episode didn't, and it has its own kind of subplots that lead to future episodes in its own way, but there was no concurrent thing happen. I really think a side plot where there's something else going on outside the Mandalorian main story on each of these episodes would be added. And again, each character should have one. You could have had one with Gina, maybe one with Greef, maybe one with Bill Burr. That would have been cool to have, to see what they're up to, right? Even though they're not a part of the main story. And then have one with Moff Gideon leading up to this crazy lab, and then it would be a reveal like, oh man, this is what Moff was working on. But I apologize for that digression. Let me get back to the main plot. So Gina has cleaned up the city, and they need to go on a siege to this hidden Imperial base. And at first, Mando is a little nervous about the child, but they put him into the space school. He gets to eat space cookies. He steals space cookies from a generically ethnic kid, because I think all the kids in there are generically ethnic. Greef, Cara, and Mithril, who's the blue character I mentioned earlier, he was in the first episode. He has to pay off his debt to Greef, so he has to take them and Mandalorian all the way to this hidden, sort of hidden, because they find it pretty easily, secret base for the Empire. And there's a lot of back and forth between Greef and Mithril. I think some people are going to find it entertaining. I did. Some people are not. Again, I kind of found a lot of this more entertaining on the second watch. So I liked it a lot better the second time than the first. And they finally get to the base. They have a little bit of trouble breaking in. The Mandalorian uses his jetpack to get up to the higher level on the base. He sends down the elevator for them, and then they get to cracking. And that's pretty much most of the episodes, them inside this base doing the siege, basically. That's why it's called the siege. So they get into the base, and as they're going through it, they find out that the child's blood has been used in some sort of experiment to either create clones or create creatures. It looks like in one of the tanks that Snoke or a Snoke-like creature is in one of these tanks, so that may be an Easter egg, that may be linking to something in the future that links up with the Disney trilogy, or maybe nothing at all. We'll see how that goes. They find this message talking about getting the child back for future experiments to get more DNA, more blood, so they can create more clones or improve the clones they have, whatever. Use whatever they can use for their nefarious purposes. In any event, even though they were already going to destroy this, they get more incentive to kind of destroy it. And this is where Gina kind of shows her weak acting skills, even though, like I said, she's pretty good non-verbally, but verbally, she just delivers her lines sometimes in a wooden way. So they get to the molten core of this base or the reactor, and they overload it. Here's another minor plot hole. They only give themselves 10 minutes. Doesn't really make sense. They should have gave themselves way more time. It's an implausible amount of time, but I digress. It's still a cool action scene. And everything, I'm going through the plot. After they get into the base, and really once they arrive, from there on, there's tons of gunfights throughout. Tons of stormtrooper gunfights, and they're all shot pretty well. Everything looks pretty good. I'm sure there are some mistakes throughout this. I mean, there are the occasional, if you remember a few episodes ago, I didn't even notice it on first watch, but there's a part where like the glass may break and you look one scene and it's not like that in another scene. So there may be mistakes like that, but for the most part, it's pretty visually well done. They're trying to escape, and then they split up. Mando uses his jetpack to go his own way to get to the child, and the other three, they go towards their speeder, how they got there, but instead use I believe it's called Marauder. It's a different vehicle that's CG, which I don't know if you like the CG. I didn't really like the CG, to be honest. I don't like CG in general, but it was okay. It was good. It was good enough. And they have a kind of a cool shootout action scene, and then they get into the Marauder, and they basically jump the Marauder down in this canyon, and you have a cool chase scene where Greef is basically playing a Han Solo role, i.e. the Millennium Falcon shootouts in the original Star Wars, where he is a part of the canon, and is similarly shaped. There are a lot of things that are trying to invoke the original trilogy, and that's almost a weakness. I mean, as much as you like fan service, when one of the advantages of doing a new show is to create new things and new vehicles and maybe a new world, and all you do is link up to the stuff that came before in such a way that nothing new happens, it can be a weakness. I didn't mention when they were in school, they were talking something about a Kessel Run or something. It was something relating to, again, the original trilogy, and it's like, okay, we get it. Come up with something new. But everything looks cool. This show is still dumb and hot. That has not changed from the first episode. I said that. It's a dumb and hot show, but when the hotness overtakes it, I'm going to talk about it. And that's why this is a good episode. I mean, even as I describe it, it's not a lot of talking. It's not a lot of dialogue. It's just action sequence to action sequence to action sequence. And that's why it's my favorite episode of the season. So anyways, they're in this cool chase sequence where first there's speeder bikes chasing after them, but they're able to get rid of all those in different ways. Cara Dune, who's driving, and Grief is again playing Han Solo in the cannon. He's able to shoot one. Cara Dune's able to smash, I think, 2 against the sides of the canyon walls. It's really cool. Everything's really cool. And then finally, TIE fighters come out and chasing them. And they're able to get one, but as they're getting chased, the Razor Crest finally swoops down and saves the day and saves our heroes. And there's a little cute scene as Mando's dispatching of the TIE fighters, or at least right after, because Baby Yoda's eating space cookies and he throws up. He's like, "You're all right," and he pukes. And again, with Baby Yoda, if you're anti-Baby Yoda, this cute stuff is going to piss you off, but if you're pro-Baby Yoda, it's pretty cute. And this episode, because that's pretty much it. And, so at the very end of the episode, we find that one of Grief's men has put a tracking beacon or some sort of device on Mando's ship. They did fix it. They fixed it really quick when you really think about it, but that's neither here nor there. So while they fixed Din Djarin's ship, apparently somebody who works for Moff Gideon and Grief Cargo, I guess he's like a double agent, put some sort of device on the Razor Crest, and now they're able to track, and they know that the Mandalorian still has the child, and Moff Gideon now knows that, and he's readying the Dark Troopers to potentially come get the child. And they're trying to rebuild the Empire with this race of Jedi, Sith, I don't know, with the Dark Troopers and the Dark Saber. Moff Gideon is basically trying to restart the Empire, and you see that vision with all the weaponry and all the things he's trying to acquire, and why the child is so important to him, and getting those experiments of whatever they're trying to create in those tanks. And so that's pretty much the episode. It is the episode. It ran about 34 minutes. I thought it was the best episode of the season, maybe even the series. There's some episodes, again, in the first season I like more. I think the last 3 episodes of the first season are really good, 6, 7, and 8. I think they're really good, but I think this goes right along with them, and I liked it. So if you like this video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do so. And let me know in the comments below what you think, if you like this episode or not, and what you think about the future. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching, and thank you for your time. God bless.